Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And the final day of Major 2 qualifiers has come to an end. Some incredibly important games today. The seeding is now set for the Major. Not the games we wanted all across the board, but very exciting ones nonetheless. And the results still count at the end of the day. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, Dashy was the kind of featured player for the OpTic versus FaZe series. We'll talk about here in a few minutes time. But of course, the big news before the day even kicked off was the fact that Simp would not be playing in the OpTic series. Not playing versus OpTic today, been throwing up all morning, couldn't make it through a warm-up map beforehand, hopefully going to feel better for the Major. That's the thing, hopefully Simp feels better very quickly, because in just a couple of days' time, they're going to be flying out to Minnesota for the Major. So he needs to be back on full form, and it's strange really that OpTic played 2 series in a row against LAG when Gunless was unwell, right? Spart had to step in for him, and then here Prestinni steps in for Simp in this particular series. So unfortunate stuff. It was good to see that OpTic kind of dealt with the pressure. We were certainly hoping we got to see these two teams at full strength kind of battle against each other, number 1, number 2 teams in the game. Hopefully we'll get that rematch at the Major, but yeah, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes time. But yeah, still, it was impressive the way that OpTic dealt with the Los Angeles Guerrillas series yesterday, given the fact that yeah, Los Angeles Thieves, right, when they played London with Paulex instead of Gizmo right at the start of the Major qualifiers, they got 3-0'd in that series. So it's good to be able to handle series like this in business. We'll talk about exactly what happened there in the OpTic series here in a few minutes time. But yeah, Prestinni was back in business with the squad. Simp out, Prestinni subbing in for now. Pretty much the perfect substitute for this team in theory, right? The kind of history he has with these players. The brother, of course, of Arcitys on the same roster. They did team together right on the Chicago Huntsman days, and of course, well, way back on the United right before that as well. But it's been quite some time since they've played on the same team together. Thought this is kind of funny as well. Relax, just got home from the gym, no warm-up, nothing. To be told I'm going up against OpTic, you know, nah, let's just have some fun about this one. And Spart though with a pretty funny reply after, of course, he had to sub in for Gunless and got pretty much bodied with like a 0.65 KD. But in fairness, Prestinni, at least at the start of this series, played pretty damn well, right? And hopefully, well, maybe other teams might look at Prestinni and think, okay, hang on a second, maybe he's an option that could fix lineup. I'm honestly kind of surprised Prestinni was even playing any Call of Duty Vanguard. He stepped in, and if anything, looked better than some pros have over these last couple of weeks. The last time these two played together was back on the Chicago Huntsman days. Of course, after that, Arcitys went to FaZe to be their main AR. Prestinni went to Seattle Surge. Didn't really work out over there, but good to see him back in business and good to see these two guys playing alongside each other. We'll talk about that series here in a few minutes' time, but firstly, we've got to talk about the battle of the 3rd and 4th teams, thankfully at full strength, Boston versus the London Royal Ravens. To me, the battle for the number 3 seed in the game. I did feel like London would win this one, and in fairness, they felt this series like pretty much the better team, to be honest. This game 1 Gavutu, a map where both teams are very solid. Methods, like, honestly, Methods' stats lately have been absurd. I said earlier today, I doubt he's going to drop another 1.7, 1.9 that he's been doing lately. He still has like a 1.45 this series, 1.44 I believe his overall stats were. So I mean, Methods have still been frying. The rest of the team though didn't really put up those same numbers. That's the thing with London, they seem to always deliver generally. And yeah, this game 1, both the hard points, I thought they were very impressive across the board. Close games, no doubt, right? These two teams are pretty well matched, but to me it feels like London are just still one step ahead of the rest of the field, and Boston have played some pretty weak hardpoint teams, to be fair, the last few weeks. So coming up against a good hardpoint team like London, and of course when they play the top dogs as well, that's where they might struggle to get over the line in some of these series, especially if they can't force them to a game 5. But yeah, game 1 goes London's way, then game 2, honestly, like, this is kind of classic London. I'm pretty sure they did this before, went up 5-0 versus someone, and then kind of struggled to close out the game. But Afro was a monster on this map, to be honest. He was clutching some crazy rounds. He almost clutched a 1 versus 2 to actually, you know, win it 6-0. TG, I'm pretty sure, just won the gunfight, but he went with some crazy chow, which honestly was a pretty good chow to make, to be perfectly honest. But Zero with a nice 1v2 early on, and then that kind of gets the ball rolling. Eventually, 3 rounds in a row were won by Boston, but that still wasn't enough in the end. London closed us on out 6-3. Then the control, they're definitely a map where London haven't been looking so good as of late. Pretty good one here for Breach. They win their first offense. They close out on the defenses. There were maybe like a 1 or 2 opportunities for London to make something happen on their kind of final offense of the game. Doesn't work out though. Methods just goes off on the main stage of this map, to be honest. Early on, he was popping some nice pieces. He finishes like with some absurd stats. Like, I think he was like plus 20 at least on this game. So he was doing absolute damage. The AR's like 0 on the other side. Couldn't really handle him all that much. And yeah, this was the final map of the series as well. A very close forward affair. Early on, it was very close. But still, we've seen the last few days really that teams will go back and forth on this one, all the way down to the wire. And then one team stretched an advantage, as London did. Eventually, they break into this hill. Nasty made a phenomenal play to catch Capsule off guard. Goes into the hardpoint. Gets the job done. They get the break from all different directions. And London just showing their prowess really at breaking hardpoints. Probably the best hardpoint breaking team in the entire game, to be perfectly honest. They get the job done 3-1, cementing themselves really as the 3rd best team in the game, I think, right now. Nero does say that he was throwing up all morning as well. So what's going on right now with these pro players all, you know, throwing up and being under the weather? So as I say, hopefully everything things okay for them to get to the major, because yeah, Nero obviously wasn't having the greatest day, and I think Boston is still a very good team indeed, but I think we don't really want to take anything away from London, who really turned up this series, and maybe there was a bit of recency bias in the fact that Boston were largely predicted to maybe win this series, at least by a lot of people, but I felt like London probably still the better team, as I think they still are, and of course, as Gizmo says, if FaZe lose, we get second seed. I think we'll talk about the seeding here in just a few minutes time. The final stats look like this, honestly good for my fantasy, because I had Methods, Afro, and Zero. Methods has a 1.44 plus 29, 95 kills, but yeah, the rest of the guys today, Nero and Cab especially, not really showing up in the slaying department, pretty much all across the board, the usual suspects, Afro, Gizmo, and Zero, they're doing the damage on the London side, but I think at least one of these teams is going to get top 4 at the major, and I hope both of these squads are mixing it up and find a way to take down the top dogs, because that's what Zero made it clear, right? They're not here to just beat Boston and the teams below them, they're here to beat OpTic and FaZe, haven't had the greatest time of doing that over the last several weeks. Let's talk this series then. So of course, Prestinni comes in place of Simp, unfortunate stuff, right? The fact that they had to step in there, we were hoping for the full teams to go against each other, nice little teaser of what we might see at the major, because I think quite clearly, really, the top 2 teams in the game. Now, Prestinni came out the gates incredibly hot on Guerrillas hardpoint. Shotzzy had a shocker at the start of this map as well. I'm pretty sure so did Dashy. And maybe they came in here knowing that they would play against a team with a sub, didn't really take it all that serious, at least the first few minutes. Then they turned it on though. They really did turn it on, OpTic. It was quite impressive, the second set of rotations effectively. But Prestinni started off like 9 in 2, 12 in 5, 13 in 5. And, you know, also Shotzzy started off absolutely shocking. I thought this was kind of funny, really. Embos is subbing in for Shotzzy to make it fair, it seems. Credit to OpTic. And even Embos is saying, look, I haven't played in how long, but I'm still at the community's head. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, at this point, it was 147 to FaZe to 86. I'm pretty sure the advantage at some point was like 140 to like maybe 70 or something. You can see at this point, Shotzi's 6 in 19. I believe he goes 6 in 20. Dashy 5 in 12. And yeah, Prestinni at this point, 18 and 11. But all of a sudden, just flipped the switch. And OpTic have won it. Like, you would not think this scoreline of 247 to 174 would come as a result of just after that last screenshot I shared. But, you know, at this point, the OpTic guys really took over. Like, that's the thing that the best teams tend to do. Like, on the second set of rotations, on a relatively traditional hardpoint map like Gavutu, where you do generally have to rotate, like, these teams can just take over the game. And that's exactly what OpTic do. So they really turn the heater on the second side here. Shotzzy turns up, even though still goes double neg game 1. Dashy turns it around, though. And Scump, again, just dominant force, right? 27 and 16. Give this man an auto on Gavutu, like, whatever it is. Hardpoint control, he's just dominating proceedings. So very impressive work from the OpTic guys once again. They move up 1-0. And of course, oh well, as Hex says, Preston about to be scooped up, right? So yes, it's difficult to say what you really think about this series, because yes, they extend the control win streak, they extend, well, their own series win streak right now. Yes, the last 2 series have some asterisks against them, but still, I think they played phenomenally. You can only beat who's in front of you at the end of the day, and they did a pretty good job clutching up, and in fairness, that's exactly what they do this game too. That's what OpTic have. I don't know how many round 11s they've won in a row now. I think Standy said after the series he feels like it might be at least 3 in a row, because every time it goes round 11, they were up 5-3 in this Tuscan Search and Destroy. aBeZy clutch a nice little 1v2, take it to the round 11 effectively, and yeah, this round 11 as well, like Shotzzy makes a nice play. Again, some interesting setups here really from the FaZe guys, like Prestinni gets caught off guard, reminiscent. I thought as soon as Prestinni got first blood in their round 11, it reminded me of the kind of OpTic versus OpTic game in Los Angeles versus Chicago Huntsman series back in Modern Warfare, if you guys know what I'm talking about there. But of course, with that one, he got a lot of information. It wasn't really the case at this time, and eventually Cell finds himself in a 1 versus 4 after a nice couple of plays from Shotzzy, and yeah, eventually Cell gets taken down, and they win this game. They go up 2-0. This was really the only chance I thought for FaZe, because sometimes in Search, even though, you know, you might not be proficient and the chemistry might not be quite there in the respawns with the substitutes, in Search, sometimes it can work, so FaZe put up a fight, but OpTic still got that clutch factor in round 11, which is pretty impressive, and the resilience they showed in game 1 also was pretty impressive too. So just generally OpTic, yes, they've looked a little bit sloppy in some of their games, certainly a FaZe, right, even when they have had their full strength roster, but it just seems like OpTic have another gear, and they of course go 5-0 after closing out the victory. Scump goes on a nice little streak early on. This guy, honestly, with the auto, it's just so difficult to deal with. It feels like this game suits this team so well, because Scump can actually use an auto on this map to great effect, and the rest of the players seem very comfortable also, so definitely the team to beat here going into the major. This as well, I was very impressed about this final play. There was a round that FaZe won here on their offense. They arguably shouldn't have won, because, well, 2 glide bombs came in for the OpTic guys. Actually, I think it was one of the FaZe defenses. OpTic thought they could close it out on their final offense, and OpTic used a couple of glide bombs, but FaZe get all the kills. This one as well was pretty good. All the nades come in, like very coordinated nades for the OpTic guys, just when there's barely any lives left for OpTic and you really feel like they're going to go down, and the wallbang comes in from Illy, actually. If he doesn't kill Cellium here, they've 100% lost this round, but and still, who knows what happens at that point. But the kill comes through the wallbang from Illy, and there's no time for anyone else to get on the point. GG, 3-1. OpTic continue their crazy control win streak right now. They extended up to 14 in a row, which is absurd. Their series win streak now is at 12, so they've been dominating lately. And as I say, at times they haven't looked like incredibly incredibly convincing, but they still end the stage 5-0 here with a victory against a somewhat unprepared and kind of nerfed FaZe team, but still very impressive, to be honest. It's tough to be incredibly consistent, I think, in Vanguard in general, so 5-0 is an impressive result. FaZe did it in stage 1. Now, GG's OpTic, as Prestinni says, for only having played ranked play in this game, I think I did pretty decent. Game knowledge needs work for sure, though. Had mad fun playing in that series, right? It's not really all that well prepared, but yeah, these are the final series stats as well. Arcitys had a pretty tough time. He drops a 0.7. Prestinni with a 0.86. aBeZy and Cellium leading the lines, but it's Scump and Dashi and Illy actually who was kind of the MVP of this series. Like, Shotzzy didn't even have to do that much, which is kind of a good sign if you're OpTic, that if Shotzzy doesn't turn up, then Illy's there to take over the snack. But once again, I mean, Scump, what a series from him. This guy's been an absolute monster as of late. There's really no other way to put it. And look at this, right? Map count their last few series. Like 3-2 versus Thieves, 3-1 versus Surge. Their last 3 series in a row, they've not lost a single map. And yes, of course, these last 2 are against teams with the sub in, but even then, I think the lesser teams would certainly lose maps or even lose series to some of these teams, as we saw with Thieves, right, what they did against London. And what a series to close out the day. A resurgent New York versus a struggling Toronto as of late. Could Toronto do anything in the hardpoint trial? Like, how would this one go? Incredibly crucial for seeding as well going into the major. Of course, Toronto going into this series lost 14 out of their last 16 hardpoints. That is exactly how things start off. This game one was tragic. Early on, it was pretty close. Then New York just pulled out a dominant advantage, win this one pretty much 250 to like 120 or something. Toronto looked completely lost on the second set of rotations. Very impressive, right, from the New York guys. Honestly, they look so much better, so much more coordinated. Neptune looks way more comfortable and way more impactful than we've seen him look, well, honestly, in so many months, right, and since that kind of end of Florida at the end of last year. So great to see for the New York guys. Then game 2 here, it was a Desert Siege Search and Destroy. This from Bance honestly turned it around spectacularly. 1 versus 3. The final kill as well was pretty disgusting. Few other rounds that arguably both teams tried to throw away. There was one where Insight almost clutched a 1v4, but Hydra just managed to get the trade in time. But Ultra win this one 6-3, I believe. They take it to a game 3. And this game 3, I kind of thought, okay, Ultra, what they've been doing lately is losing the hardpoints, but they'll at least take it to a game 5 with a kind of a 2-3-5 type thing situation going on. And honestly, it starts off pretty well for them. But in the round 5 on this control, they get completely dominated and blown out of the water. Like, Neptune has a fantastic start to this round. Hydra calls in some streaks. And honestly, Toronto don't even get the A point in the ends, which you rarely ever see, to be honest, on this map. So New York dominated the final defense, got up 2-1 in the series. And at that point, you're looking at Toronto thinking, well, they can't win a hardpoint to save their lives. Are they going to finally win one here on Gavutu? And 2 map wins in this series meant that Subliners confirmed into the winners bracket. So fantastic work from them. But of course, this final map honestly matters a lot because Toronto had to win this series, being 1 in 3, to actually make it to the winners bracket. If they still managed to win the series, then New York and Toronto both got through, and it was Seattle Surge with a bad map count that would have fallen out. But if Subliners go on to win, then it's Toronto out of there, and Seattle Surge managed to stay in. So incredible stuff, to be honest. And yes, game 4 goes the way you might well expect. Close down to the wire, but Toronto lose it again. CleanX pulled off an incredible 3-piece that you guys can see right here to somehow keep the dream alive for Toronto, that they might somehow take this to a game 5. But then Neptune just runs into the hill all on his own, pops a 3-piece effectively, like 1-2, gets the third onto CleanX. Like, I don't know what they're playing at there to throw away that situation. But New York win this one. What a performance from them. They get to the winners bracket. Toronto, the 11th seed, and as Bance says, all-time low for this team. The final series stats look like this. Neptune with a 1.14, Hydra with a 1.21. Finally, the kind of SMG duo on New York coming alive right here. Bance with a not great series, neither with CleanX, to be honest. The SMG duo there that was so dominant last year, or not necessarily dominant, but so impactful, let's just say, really fallen off a cliff the last few weeks, to be perfectly honest. Maybe changes needed for this team. They go into the major with the lowest bracket position. We'll look at the bracket in more detail tomorrow, but I believe this is how it's going. We'll talk about this in more detail tomorrow, but I believe this is how it's going. So these are the 8 teams getting to winners. OpTic, Seattle, London, Florida, FaZe, New York, Boston, Los Angeles, Guerrillas. Those are the matchups in the first round. OpTic, Seattle, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened last time around as well. But of course, those teams right now definitely on very different trajectories. Spicy first round matchups, plenty more to discuss in the coming days. Very much enjoyed taking your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. Tell us the YouTube gods, this is a good video. Others like you should see it as well. And I've got the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.